Hello friends, I'm Sarah from Ensign Insights, and today I am going to give you a glass pen tutorial and review. I'll be giving you all of the helpful tips that you need to know to use your own glass pen and where you can buy them. Because the glass pen is monoline lettering, so just a single line, if you want to do the calligraphy look, then you'll need to do foligraphy, which you see me doing here. If you don't know what foligraphy is, I will link to some worksheets below to help you out with that. Otherwise, let's get started. So first of all, I have two glass pens. This one on the bottom I got from AliExpress. The one on the top I got from Amazon. The bottom one, it took about 3 weeks maybe to ship. So it was only $4, but it took so long to ship. The one on the top from Amazon, it took 2 days, Amazon Prime, and it was $7 or $8. And I'll share the link for both of them in the description box below. You can see that the nibs are a little bit different. So there's the pear-shaped one and the straight spirally one, and I'm going to show you the difference. The straight spirally one did come with this cute little bunny stand that is pretty helpful. The easiest ink to use with glass pens is liquid watercolor. It flows so perfectly off of the nib. You just dip it in a couple times and you can see that it kind of soaks up into the grooves, and then it slides off really easily. I will show you some other inks that you can use if you don't want to use liquid watercolor. I am using Ecoline watercolor, which I love. And then to clean your glass pen, you just dip it in water, and this is honestly the most satisfying part, to watch the ink flow around in the water. So now, using the pear-shaped one, this one I am going to use India ink. I found this ink at Walmart for just a couple dollars, and I'll just dip it in. And because this is also liquid, I don't have to worry about it being too thick. You can see there's not that much of a difference between the two types of pens. I think this one has a slightly bigger line, but it's barely noticeable. And once again, cleaning it off is the most satisfying part. I always share these videos on Instagram because I love them so much. And then to clean it off, you just have to wipe it with a little paper towel. Like I already said, liquid watercolor is definitely the easiest watercolor to use with a glass pen. You basically want the ink to be able to soak itself up through the grooves, and you'll see it kind of do that if it's the right consistency of ink. And for paper, this actually matters as well. So I'm using HP Premium 32 paper. This is really smooth, but with watercolor ink, it can bleed slightly. So this is the smoothest look, but you can't use that much ink. And then next, I'm using mixed media paper. This one is still sort of smooth, but it lets the ink absorb a little bit more into the paper. And then using watercolor paper, this is also really great. It does make your lettering look a little bit more scratchy because there's more texture in the paper, but it makes the ink look so nice. And once again, cleaning it is the most satisfying part. So you just dip it in the water and then use a paper towel to wipe it off. I was asked, how many times do you have to dip the pen? So how long can the ink last? So you see there, I just dipped it once in the Ecoline liquid watercolor, and it lasts a really long time. So this is just going to keep going and going and going, and you can start to see when it starts to not be as saturated. With liquid watercolor, it's going to last for a very long time. If you use pan watercolor or metallic watercolor, it's not the same because it kind of gets dried in the grooves, and so it's not as liquidy and it won't come out as smoothly. So you will have to dip it a lot more often. That's why Ecoline or liquid watercolor is the easiest. And you can see that I'm holding my pen to the side, and that lets the ink be released a little bit easier. With the other type, the straight spirally one, I didn't need to do that as much. So now I'm going to show you how you would use watercolor in the pan with your glass pen, because you might have a pan like this. This is the Jane Davenport. And so basically this is what I do anytime that I use watercolor lettering. And you want to basically make it like it is liquid watercolor. So you take a little bit from the pan and you mix it with some water in a little well. And the next one I'm going to show you is Bria Reese glitter ink. This one is liquid already, but I have to put it in the well because I can't dip my pen into the bottle. And then the next one is Poseidon Watercolor. This is from the Nostalgia Collective handmade watercolor, and it's the same thing. I do have a video on watercolor lettering. If you are interested more about that, I will link that here. Basically, you're just getting the watercolor wet and you are mixing it into the well, so it's like liquid watercolor even with these metallic watercolors. And this one is the Kuretake Starry Sky watercolors. I really like this gold, but once again you have to make it so that it's almost liquid watercolor. And I've had to play around quite a bit with getting the right consistency. I've been doing this a lot with watercolor lettering, and so I have a little bit of practice, but you might have to play around a little bit before you get it right. So now I'll go through each of those watercolors to show you how they work. The Ecoline, of course, is the easiest one. This one is very straightforward. And then next, with the Jane Davenport, I need to paint on the watercolor, and you want to see the ink being sucked up into the grooves. And you'll know as you start writing with it, if it's too thick, it's not even going to come off of the pen at all. And then you're going to think that your pen doesn't work. If that happens, then you're just going to add a little bit more water, and you can even just put some water on your brush and brush that onto the pen and then test it again, and that should work. And next is the Bria Reese. This one is also straightforward because it is liquid watercolor, and I love the glitter of this one. When it dries, you can really see the glitter in your lettering. And next, this is the handmade watercolor, the metallic Poseidon from Nostalgia Collective. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky because the metallic makes it really thick. And so it is difficult to find just the right consistency. And I always have to keep adding a little bit more water onto my pen because it does dry out. The liquid part does dry out just after a few words, and so then you just have to add a little bit more water. And I found the same with the Kuretake as well. And now I'm going to try the Dr. P.H. Martin's the Copper Plate Gold. This one is almost liquidy enough, and so I'm just dropping it on, and then I'm going to use my brush to add some water right into my pen, and then I'm going to test it to make sure that it is the right consistency, and you can see it is coming out just fine. And so that's how you know if it's coming out in one big drop, then it is too thick, or if it's not coming out at all. And that's how you'll know that you need to add more water. So I hope this helps to give you an idea of different inks that you can use. These pens are glass, so they can break easier. So if you drop them or if you push really hard, I guess it could break. I don't think someone who's really heavy-handed would break it just by the regular pressure. And this is the straight spirally pen, and you can see that I am using the point directly straight up and down on the paper, and the ink is coming out just fine, and it doesn't with the other pen. The pear-shaped one, you do have to have it on the side a little bit so that it's coming directly from a groove, and you can hear what it sounds like in real time. Oh, and for black paper, I'm using one from Astropad, I believe. It's like thicker black paper, not quite cardstock. As long as you have a pretty thick black paper, I'm sure it'll work just fine. I was asked why you would want to use a glass pen instead of just any other monoline pen. Isn't it just the same thing? And that is a good point. So if you love your monoline pens and you have no need for any other colors, then maybe this isn't the right fit for you. But if you use watercolor ink and you do a lot of watercolor, then this would be a way to match the style of your piece by adding some watercolor lettering, but in a monoline look. Monoline is easier than watercolor with a brush, especially at the beginning. If you love monoline lettering and this kind of look, and you do a lot of watercolor, then this is probably a great fit, especially since it's not that expensive, and so it's nice to just have. Plus, it is so satisfying, and you can always do foligraphy so that it's not monoline, but you're still getting that watercolor effect, which is really cool because I don't have pens that look like this watercolor, especially the metallic watercolor. I think that's what makes it so unique to use a glass pen. I hope this video answered all of your questions about how to use a glass pen and where to find them. Remember, the links are in the description box below. If you do have any other questions that I did not answer, please leave them in the comments and I will answer them. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a very happy new year and a great start to 2019. I am really so grateful for you being here and watching my videos and sticking with me through all of my nerdy pen reviews and love of hand lettering. Thank you so much. If you haven't already, subscribe for my next video, and I will see you next time.